Hey y'all, this one's called What Would Jesus Do? And it's dedicated to all those hate preachers out there. I met a hateful man and I just couldn't understand why he was shouting and stomping with the Bible in his hand. He said the Lord is with him, do you really think that's true? And it makes me sit and wonder, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? He wouldn't act like you. Jesus tells us not to sin, but you're driving folks away from him. He said these sinners need to know exactly where they're gonna go. He yelled, it's in the Bible, don't you know? I said, yeah, that's true, and it also applies to you. And you're driving folks away from the throne. What would Jesus do? He wouldn't act like you. Jesus tells us not to sin, but you're driving folks away from him. Now he's as mad as he could be, screaming and telling me I gotta make disciples in his name. I said, now tell me where it says to scream and yell until you're red. That's only driving folks away. What would Jesus do? He wouldn't act like you.